But I think we'll just go ahead and start. I'm going to start actually with showing you some slides to give you just an idea of sort of how I began and why I do what I do. And so some of the monitors have a little slideshow, and so I'll just say that glass is the most amazing alchemic blend of sand and metallic oxides combined with extraordinary blinding heat. The result is a material that flows and drips like honey. When it's hot, glass is alive. It moves gracefully and inexorably in response to gravity and centripetal force. It possesses an inner light and transcendent radiant heat that make it simultaneously one of the most fascinating and one of the most technically challenging and frustrating materials for an artist to work with. When I was a kid, well, actually, what's so amazing about glass is that you can formulate it in almost any color imaginable by adding metallic oxides, silver and gold and copper and cobalt and iron. Iron makes the most beautiful green, Coke bottle green color. And so it can be formulated into any color imaginable, and it's one material that even its shadows and edges have color, vibrant color. When I was a kid, I was always interested in ceramics, and in high school, I built a ceramic kiln. But what I realized as I did ceramics through high school and then in college, that's me on the right with my brother, my younger brother Kim to the left. When I was in high school and college, the most fascinating part of ceramics to me was formulating glazes. And glazes are glass. And they involve exactly the same materials that hey, Reza. And anyway, so that was really wonderful to me. And so when I was at college, I went to Hamilton College in upstate New York here, not that far away. I had managed to finish 3.5 years at Hamilton and had one required course left to graduate when I decided to depart from college. I rented 50 acres of land in northern Vermont for $22.50 a month. And I got 2 huge bolts of Dacron sail canvas, and I sewed together a teepee on a treadle sewing machine and set that teepee up on that land. And also on that land, I built this ramshackle studio that was 12 feet by 12 feet by 12 feet tall, and completely built with found and recycled barn boards. It was super, super low tech. In fact, so low tech that I got bags of cement and mixed it up with water and sand and just poured it over the grass. And that floor did just fine for years and years. And anyway, so my studio was low tech, my teepee was low tech. What? You're trying to remind me of the next thing, which I'm going to do in a moment. Actually, thank you for reminding me of that. We don't actually have to blow glass. I'm just going to show you slides the whole time. Let's just see what's next. Oh, all right. I should just say that in the very beginning, and all right, I'll do this. I'm going to pick up this little bead. Can you guys see it clearly? It's about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. And I'll show you, in a few minutes, I'm going to show you how we make this bead, because it looks so simple, and it's just this teeny little thing. And I've got another one of this one stuck in my furnace, and Tucker's going to bring over the glass, and we're going to just take that little bead, if I can find it. There it is down there. We're going to put that in, and we're also going to put a piece of dichroic glass in next to it. Okay, you're good. Okay, as I was saying, So now Tucker's going to melt that in. But in the very beginning, the most difficult thing I could imagine doing, the absolute most challenging piece of glass I thought I could ever make was a wine goblet. And they are really difficult to make because you've got to have a stem and a bowl and a foot all attached to each other. And so I began to make goblets. These are some of my early ones, and this is what I absolutely, in my soul, believed was a perfect set of matched ruby wine goblets. And you can't imagine how ferociously determined I was to learn how to do this. I never had taken a course. I didn't know how to do this, but I knew it could be done because I'd seen generations of these things made. And so I literally worked 7 days a week for 4 or 5 or 6 years in a row, literally taking sometimes Christmas morning off. And living in a teepee, actually, it was better to be in the glass studio most of the time. But I'll tell you about one quick story that in January of 1972, I decided I'd heard about the Corning Museum of Glass, and I put a sleeping bag in a pack along with a change of clothes, and I hitchhiked from Vermont, northern Vermont, out here to Corning. And in Albany, some guy in a pickup truck picked me up. I sat in the back of a pickup truck in January all the way from Albany to Elmira, 88 miles or whatever it is, and I nearly died back there. I climbed into my sleeping bag upside down, so my feet were at the head end of it. And when I got here to Corning, right here in this room, which is, this room is so full of history, this building, there was a furnace right here and right where you are. I sat at a bench and watched the Steuben glassblowers work. And I sat there rapt for, I was 22 years old or so, rapt attention for 2 days. And I think those glassblowers thought there was something really wrong with me. And in fact, they asked me, on the second day, one of them just said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to learn how to blow glass. You're amazing." And he actually gave me a pair of shears because one of his co-workers had retired, and he gave me a pair of shears that I still have and that I still use 50 years later now. But anyway, so I continued making goblets, and I also started experimenting with putting colors and making colors with different oxides of metals. In this case, silver. I discovered how to make a really intense blue color, which I called New Mexico, which turned out to be, I thought, really interesting and beautiful. I called it New Mexico because it reminded me of what the sky might look like on a perfect summer night in New Mexico. And one day, my goblets kept getting better and better and better. I was making just goblets for years. And in 1977 or 76, I was at the post office, and I met a guy who was there who had my goblets, and he said, "You know, we were drinking out of your goblets last night, and it was amazing. At some point in the evening, we weren't drinking out of your goblets at all. We were drinking out of the sky." And I just thought, boy, that must have been some pretty good wine. And but in fact, it was this wonderful revelation to me that something as utilitarian and simple and functional as a goblet could become something much more. It could be drinking out of the sky. And then a big thing happened in 1977. Rosalind Carter chose my goblets to have at a White House luncheon. And I got a lot of press and publicity from that. And in 1978 or 79, I think it was 79, there was the New Glass Review at the Corning Museum of Glass, a worldwide survey. And my goblets were chosen for that. And this place put me on the map. You know, suddenly I was actually, people thought I was officially not a hippie living in the woods, but a glass blower. So they chose this set of goblets, and Life magazine even, let's see if this, Life magazine picked it up, and in this picture there's Tom Petty, Marvin Lepofsky, Harvey Littleton, my goblet, Dominic Labino, and Dale Chihuly. We were all just babies back then, you know, and this museum was part of a huge part of the story of making us successful. So with all of that, my work started to sell. I actually could, and I was selling goblets for $3 a piece, and eventually they got to be a little more expensive, and eventually I had enough money to buy the most ramshackle barn, and I was really looking just for a barn to live in, but it turned out that this barn came with a house for free, and I had no furniture. I moved from a teepee to this barn, and anyway, today that barn is the most advanced studio. At least for my work, it's the best studio in the world. This studio beats all, but anyway. So here's my farm. But you might wonder why I make planets at all, and I live out in the country. It's beautiful. This is Comet Neowise from my backyard a few years ago. And sometimes when I'm out early in the morning checking my furnaces, I'll see an aurora borealis or incredible night skies. But when I first moved here to Shelburne, one of the local 8th grade teachers came by my studio and asked me if I would be willing to demonstrate glassmaking to all the 8th graders in Franklin County, the county that I live in. And I thought, sure, of course, that'd be great. Not realizing that I'd inadvertently agreed to having a bunch of 8th graders in my studio every single Wednesday for months on end. And I don't know if any of you have ever known an 8th grader. Are there any 8th graders here? These are people, they are wonderful and amazing people, but they will suffer no boredom in their lives whatsoever. And so I found that they weren't the slightest bit interested in making bowls or bottles or vases or paperweights or planets. Well, what I began to make for them was marbles. And they seemed to really love that. They could all relate to marbles. They were these little things with curly colors, swirly colors, or cat's eyes. And so I began to do that. But one night, before they came the next day, I thought about this iconic photo taken by Bill Anders and the Apollo 8 crew in 1968 or 69, just Christmas Eve, and how our planet kind of looks like a little marble. And so I started, for the kids the next day, instead of making marbles, I made planets. Not planets that were meant to be the Earth, but it was meant to give these kids something to think about, something that our Earth, that seems so vast and limitless, is really on a cosmic scale only as big as a tiny little blue marble. And so planets, though, suddenly were this interesting thing where everybody gets it. Everyone understands. Everyone loves to see this little sphere. They're interesting, they're intriguing, they're their own little world, and they transcend culture and religion and age and ethnicity and maybe even species. And planets have taken me a long way. This is the planet that's here in this museum, and upstairs you can go see it. But make sure you put your nose print on the glass, because I think there's an award for the most nose prints, all right? And at least I hope there is. And here's my work at the Smithsonian's Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C. And this is a museum that's now moved to Tokyo, but it's the Josh Simpson Sphere Museum in Kanazawa, Japan. So, all right, so now we'll actually start to oh, goodness, that's grown. Okay, so, oh, you know what, though? I haven't shown you the slides of, you have to keep this hot for, you know what you can do? If you take a gather of blue glass and then I'll show, remember that little thing that I put in there? Can you see that? That looks so simple. Let me just quickly show you slides of the making of that, and I promise we won't take too much longer with that. Okay, those are those little, I call them spaceships. They're little enigmatic things. They're intriguing to look at. They're like little marbles in their own way, except they're not necessarily round. Sometimes they're flat. The way I start to make those is one day we put a bar of white glass in a kiln and heat it up super hot. And in this case, Tucker has picked it up, and we're going to squeeze that glass in between two rollers. And this is a machine that I actually stole. I didn't actually steal the machine. I stole the idea of making this machine from a factory in Lviv, Ukraine, where I worked for a while in the 1992. So that's Zach putting the plate away. It's still hot and begins to sag. So a day or two later, after those are cooled, I take those flat sheets of glass and I saw them with a diamond saw to make little rectangles. And then I take the rectangles and I heat them up in a kiln overnight. And that's the kiln over to the right. And I pick up the individual pieces with a tweezer and put them in a little forming, it's essentially a mold. And I drip clear glass over them. I cut that clear glass, heat it up, and then I end up with a little triangle, like a little piece of a pie with a white on one side of it. And we put that away, and it cools for a couple of days, and then it comes out the next day or 2 days later. We grind the back of it sometimes to make them even, and if you wind these up, and then when people ask me how long it takes to make something, I always say about an hour and 45 years. And I say that because it's really true. I have made these canes for many, many years, and so I will always pick a cane that I have made some years before, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before, and put it in today's work, just so that I've got some history with today, whatever I'm doing today. So in the center of that, those pie-shaped wedges, I put a cane made earlier, many years before. And then I wrap them up with a rubber band to hold them still. And then I actually put wire around them because it's a bad idea to put rubber bands in a kiln. Ask me how I know. So I put Kanthal wire around and then I pick them up on the end of my blowpipe and begin to fuse them together, heat them up together. And I remove the wire and taking newspaper. Now my crew behind me has taken gather of blue glass, and Tucker's about to gather, or did you already gather some? I have blue. You have blue, okay. And they're about to gather my special formula of a silver glass on top of that. They're going to roll it over and pick those up. Anyway, I get it super hot and then stretch it out. So we're covering the whole surface. This is in lieu of having a whole furnace full of black glass, which is what we would normally do. I stretch that out and end up with cane that's about 1.5 inches or 2 inches in diameter. And then then that's cooled off, then heated up again, cut, put into an annealing oven, picked up on the end of a blowpipe, and this time I stretch it even further. And if you notice, I have a drill in my hand attached to a punty, and we twist it so it's twisted. And then we break it into smaller segments and cool it overnight, and now we have these little canes. But they are really complicated little canes. And the next step is to put one of those little canes back into a kiln, heat it up, and attach it to a little pontile rod. And I'm going to shape it with a pair of shears, diamond shears, and make it small, twist it a little bit more, squash it, and break it off. And there they are. So you can see how simple those are. And the irony is you probably won't actually see this little spaceship or this little enigmatic whatever it is inside this piece. You'd have to roll it over and look up inside of it with just the right light. But it's there, and I know it's there. And now you do. But it's meant to be kind of a secret. So I think I have to actually sing for my supper here, or blow glass. You've got 2 rolls? Okay. We'll do another one. Normally in my studio, I have my own formula of glass that I've developed over the years, and I have developed my own colors, and it just seemed easier to melt my own color, drip that glass out of my furnace into a bucket of water, and then we broke it up into little tiny shards. And so Tucker's gathering it up. And I think that'll be enough once you're done with that and you melt it in, and then I'll take it from you. So this glass is particularly interesting because it has cobalt, manganese, chromium, silver, quite a bit of silver in it, and melted metallic silver that's melted into the glass melt. And so it's very, very reactive. So if I put it into a furnace with not enough, that's burning with not enough oxygen, so it has a reducing flame, then that silver will be drawn to the outside surface, and it creates the magical blue colors that you might associate with my work that I call New Mexico. And we're not actually sure that it's going to work, and so we're going to actually power it up. We have 3 torches here today. They all have different names. This is called Fluffy. This is Fluffy, and you'd see why it's called Fluffy if I had a way to light it up. But, and how you doing? No, can you smooth it in a little bit more? Okay, so this is, so that's Fluffy. And then there's also Snap and Spot. And so you'll see probably Snap. Oh, this is called Snap. And Spot is the one that you can't see after you use it because there's just spots in front of your eyes. So we love our torches, but they can bite. And so you have to be careful with them. So can you just smooth that in? And then so any questions at this point? If you're going to ask what we're doing, we don't know. Yes. What is the weight? I don't know. It's just heavy. It's. Hey Tucker, how heavy is that?
How heavy is that, Tucker?
He's saying 15, but it's probably 20. He doesn't know his own strength. So. All right. So the next step, I'm going to take this from them, and I'm going to use Spot over in the corner, and I might even put in on my dark glasses so I'll be able to see you guys later. And I'm going to use Spot to reduce the surface of the glass, and we'll see how that works. Oh, there you are. You want to bring it over? Okay. So it'll probably light right off the... Yep, you put it down this way. So this is a good way to reduce the surface and turn the glass to a bluer color. This is a very hot torch. This could also be called Snap. Yeah, where's the silver? Here, right here, I got it. So I'm going to actually add some metallic silver. Thank you. And then we're going to reduce that again. This is kind of an experiment because we don't really do it this way in my studio. But you get the idea anyway. This is the boring part. Okay, that's good. No, we're gonna do cane next. So I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna heat it up. This is not 15 pounds. Oh, that's cool. This thing moves in and out. Okay, so Jesse is using Fluffy to get all of the cane that are on that plate. Every single one of them was made the same way that I just made the piece that you just saw. Oh yeah, we should put a piece of Corona on. No, you know what? I'm going to use it later. Okay, let me out. So we have set this cane and I need to get it hot again. Thank you, Zach. So what I'm doing now is putting superficial geology on this planet and maybe alien cities. Okay, good. Maybe alien cities or something that's interesting to look at. I think that's good for now. Oh, you know what? We should maybe cool this blowpipe a little bit, or I'll heat it for a moment. So what I'm trying to do is heat these cane in that will eventually, they are really very complex little pieces of glass. And if you have, if you have a magnifying glass, and Tucker, can you hold this while I smooth them in? All right, now I've got to come around the other side. So I'm going to take a paddle and try to smooth these in. And usually at this point we get some. Yeah, I'm going to reach into, yeah, it's probably good to flash it. So this is the point at which I might put palladium or platinum leaf or gold leaf or silver and I have a little kill. Can you guys see this if they open this up? I have a little kill that's at 900 and something degrees full of little things that I can put inside the planets. Okay, so I'm going to put this in first because it's the longest one. We're going to have to cool that blowpipe. Come on. Quick, good. Not good. Flash it. So I don't know if you noticed, I tried to attach a little bead to it. All of you guys in the front row, don't pick that up. Actually, if you can pick it up, you can keep it. How about that? I'm going to switch glasses again because I can't see. Back. Oh, you know what? Can you cool that blowpipe? Because it is... I'm such a wuss. I wear gloves, and there's Kevlar underneath these gloves, and there's Kevlar over my shirt. Actually, when we're doing big things, when we're doing really large work, one person in the studio is just assigned. Sometimes you'll smell burning Kevlar or burning cloth, and nobody knows who it is. And so there's one person who's assigned to make sure that if you catch on fire, they put you out. And usually if you're smelling burning something, it's you. And what's weird is that Kevlar won't burn, but the cloth underneath will. And so sometimes it'll get hot enough to catch fire. You can come. You can go over. Okay, so we're going to attach this instead, which will hold better. And now I'm going to put a piece of Corona glass in. All right, so this green glass that I'm putting in that looks green to me anyway will not be green in a minute. That'll never stay. Actually, when these planets are hot, if you stay this far away from it for 8 or 10 seconds, your clothes catch on fire. So but that's what we do. That's part of the joy of this, you know. I mean, it's the same as people who ride skateboards down crazy hills and dive off of cliffs, you know. So, and truth be told, no, we never get burned by touching the actual glass. The way we get burned is by touching Josh's tweezers after I'm finished working with him. Okay. So if you just want to let that cool a little bit to get it to core, I'm going to show some more slides, I think, if I can find my slide thing. So that's that white cane that can be used in different ways. And so I just wanted to show you the next thing, which is I just put into this planet a little grid of white cane, but in between each of the white cane is a little tiny air bubble. And so the way we do that is to heat up a bar of white glass that already has clear around it in a kiln overnight, up to 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. I pick it up on the end of a blowpipe, heat it up, and then gather more clear glass over it. And the trick here is to not let it flop over or get too flopsy. I'm just gathering white glass with clear, several layers of clear. And so I'm going to have a sausage that's maybe this big around and maybe this long. But the magic of glass is that when you stretch it, it keeps the same cross section no matter what. And and that's why we can talk through fiber optic cable, because you can take one kind of glass and then another kind of shielding glass around it, stretch it for miles, and you can shine laser light through it and create signals. Anyway, I shape this glass by taking several gathers of glass over it. That's your way of doing exercise? Someone's back there lifting a blowpipe like this. Okay, so next, once it's shaped, sorry this video's a little long. Once it's shaped, I hand it to Tucker, who's better at doing this than anybody in the world. He's amazing. And raise your hand, Tucker. Tucker can pull cane like nobody's business. It's amazing. And you've been doing it since you were just a kid. Yeah. And so this is just like taffy when it's hot, except if it's too hot in one place, it just drips off the blowpipe and nothing happens. That's our other assistant, Kirk, who works in the studio. And they pulled this cane a long way. We go right down the length of the studio into the back garage area, all the way the length of the studio and out the garage door. And then once it hardens up, once it gets a little bit colder, it's still hot enough to burn you, but we break it up into little segments, and little segments, and then it's bundled up, fused together, and it ends up being. We can make things like this. Can you guys focus on this on my hand? Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to take that. I'll take that clear coat. I'll do the gather, and anyway, we melt it. And if I take the thin layers of glass, I can put them in a little ceramic mold and run them one way and then the other way, and end up with, after heating them up, I end up with this amazing little matrix of white cane that could be, I mean, part of the reason I do these is, I'm going to end up having to owe Corning for something here. Anyway, part of the reason I do this is to make things that you can explore these planets. You can look at them and just, actually I mostly do it so other glassblowers that look at it kind of go, how'd that guy do those things? And that's actually what all of us glassblowers do that. We always like to mess with each other. And so this is a fun trick to do. And I take a glass cutter and cut these little lengths that I then can melt into the side of a planet, and doing that on the fly would be really difficult. Okay, so now, again, I think I have to actually do some work here. So I'm going to gather clear glass over this, and I'm going to go from here to the pipe cooling station, and somebody's going to pump the water, okay? Yeah, and I might drip some glass off. Here we go. Okay. Now, this is beginning to be heavy. I got it. Oh. And so lift it up, and we'll come over to the kiln. I'm going to give it to you, Tucker, and I'm going to go back to the little furnace, or the little kiln. This is such a nice studio to work in. Now at this point, I'm using a longer pair of tweezers for some. So these are going to be things floating in the atmosphere above the planet's surface. One goes here. One more. Where did you go, little guy? There you are. Okay, come this way. Stop. Good. Okay, now you have to heat it, but you can't let those go heat all the way in. Okay, so the next step is I've heated some cane pieces which have swirls of white glass on them. And I'm going to then take this magic tool, pair of pliers, and I'm going to squish them with my pliers and then lay them down on the surface. And they'll make this undulating pattern, which is really incredibly difficult for other glassblowers to figure out how you did that. And the secret is cool as long as you guys do not share it, all right? You're coming back here, right? Oh, you did. Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Let me get my tweezers in the right place, or my shears. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. When your gloves start to smoke, you know that you're going to feel the pain soon. That's it. Back to heat again. Back to heat. But that's the cool thing about wearing gloves, because when they smoke, you know, hey, this is a good time to kind of back off, you know. Glass is kind of like, it's this weird thing where we look like ballet dancers sometimes, but we're like football players trying to do ballet. And because there is this little essence of okay, so far so good. One more heat. And Tucker, am I going to get too much glass on the next one for us to?
No, I think it's good.
Okay. Tucker, this is the way it normally works in my studio. I get to, if you were eating a piece of cake, I get the icing. I get to lick icing all day long. It's the best job in the world because I do whatever I want on the inside of these planets. I can be creative or stupid or fun or interesting or whatever. And And then what I do is I'll take the first several gathers, put planets or put geology and put buildings and all sorts of things on the first layer, and then I'll take a second layer and put the spaceships in, and then I hand it to Tucker. And Tucker has to be the most incredible technician, where I can be like loose all over the place, and I do whatever I want. I get the art part, and Tucker has to be so precise that everything is exact. Now, you could probably it would probably be helpful if you put it in the block for a second or two. You want me to bring it over to you? So we're going to make it slightly rounder, and I'm going to take this. This is something that my mom used to use. My mom made clothes, and I was home for Thanksgiving one year, and I found this little thing, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's called a pounce wheel." I don't know why. I think because I used to attack my brothers with it. But it's called a pounce wheel, and it's a little star on the end of a wheel. And it's magic in glass, because if you take this wheel and go zzz, it puts tiny little indentations, a perfect row of little indentations in. And wherever there's an indentation where I gather more clear glass over it, it will trap an air bubble. And they look so cool. They actually then are not air bubbles. They're geosynchronous communication satellites floating in orbit around the planet. So these guys are straightening this out a little bit. How are we doing for time? Is it 2:30 yet? Is it 2:45? Is it 3? 3:12. Oh man. Okay. All right. I don't see anybody who's asleep, but if this is getting boring, we're trying not to make it boring. So, is it just a little bit of heat? And then I'll put the bubbles in. Then we're going to let it cool a little bit, and then I'll take a last gather of clear. Yes? Sometimes mistakes are good. That is true. Actually, in my studio, I have a whole shelf called the purgatory shelf. And where things that didn't turn out the way I intended for them to turn out end up. And if I don't look at those things for a year, if I only look at them every other year or so, sometimes I don't remember what I was trying to do. And so occasionally I'll find something on the purgatory shelf and I just go, what was I thinking? How did it get here? Okay, so I'm going to put little indentations. No, this is fine. And one in the other direction, so it's got to come this way. Okay, good. All right, so that's it. I'm going to gather next. So this is, what block size is that, Tucker? 7.5. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not going to gather a lot of glass. Okay, so this is maybe going to be 40 pounds or maybe something like that when we're done. But imagine something twice this size, how much more intense it is. So do we have paddles? I'm going to protect you. And you guys, Jesse and Zach, you're going to turn. I'm going to grab this for now. I'm going to cool this off first before we go in. This is still heavy. No, don't need it. I don't think it cooled the blowpipe all that much, though. All right, I'm going to try to do this. Wait, you know what? I want to cool it a little bit more. Okay, that's good. Okay, this is it. Let's go. I'm going to let as much drip off as I can in the furnace. All right, open up. Zach, careful. Yep. Nope, I'm good. Got it, got it. Yep. Okay, let's go. Okay, I've got it now. Tucker, are you all set? This is still heavy. Okay. Now is the hard part, actually, to keep Tucker alive. I could be behind you, if that's better. And you guys could probably see better if Fluffy and I have made peace long ago. Fluffy won't burn me.
You can keep that wheel forward, moving a little bit, and then hang it down on your way back. That'd be awesome.
So, truly, this is the most difficult part of is forming this unruly bit of molten liquid glass into a shape that's pleasing and has no flaws at all on the outside. And that's why I don't do this job. Well, actually, when we did the big one, this was what I did. And part of the trick with this is that you can't see the color because it's just red. It's just hot. After all these years of working, we can see the color. I'm going to switch to be in front of you. Excuse me, Fluffy. If you were to blow this, you could make something really quite large. And the reason we make them solid is just because we can. Actually, if I blew into this, we could make them larger, but it would distort the little cane that I make. It would make them be more diffuse and not as precise as they are. And I love the precision of them on the inside. I love the fact that you can look at this planet on your desk or on your front step or wherever you put it, and see something today, but discover something in the sunlight tomorrow or the next day, or someday maybe you might turn it over and find something totally different, like that little thing that we put inside of it. Sorry. Do you want me underneath you? Sometimes Tucker and I do this together. So now the trick, we have to actually separate this from the blowpipe, otherwise back to Jack's. I'll do it. Yep. Yeah. Part of this is not to jack it too much because it'll fall right off. Yep. Freeze it a little bit. Go ahead. So when you're making glass, you always have a chance to do something else to it. You can say, oh, it's not quite perfect. I'm going to fix this little thing. That is death. It's death to do that. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. But we often enough go for perfection and pay the price. So we're going to flash it a couple more times, I think. Actually, you know what? I don't see any flaws in this. I'm sure there's some. You could actually start to cool it by shutting off the glory hole. All right, okay. That camera at the back of that glory hole must get awful hot too. I know. So I'm going to take the blowpipe. You shut the glory hole off?
Got it.
I got it. I got it. Still heavy.
I guess that was my 3 pounds.
Yeah, Tucker now thinks it's 40 pounds. But the blowpipe weighs 18 or 20, so. Okay, so we don't really need to heat it quite yet, but what we're doing is, right now, if we put this into the cooling oven, if we put it into the annealing oven to start cooling, the inside of this glass is still liquid hot. Now, something's wrong. It's Jesse holding on. If we put it in the annealing oven right now, it's going to slump. Ask me how I know. We actually made a 100-pound planet that was actually displayed at the museum because it was so badly mangled by the time we got back after lunch that, anyway, it cooled beautifully. It just looked like a marshmallow that had had a bad day. And anyway, so we're letting it cool, but we can't let it cool too much on the outside. So we've turned the glory hole off, and that'll be a more gentle heat, and we'll give it a little bit of heat, and we'll try to get it in. This blowpipe is actually really hot. I'm gonna take it over and cool it. So, no, I'll take it over to the. I just have to grip it in another place. In my studio, I have an electric pipe cooler, and you just put your pipe on. You don't have to pump. So my studio is much better than this studio. Okay, good. In a moment. Actually, you know what? Yeah, you could start, you could. Actually, you know what you should do is you should put this away, and I'll start the rest of the talk, and then you'll start after that. So I'm going to give this to you, and you just hang out here. Don't even come out. Just wait. So Jesse's suiting up in his fire suit because we're going to crack it off, and actually Jesse's going to pick it up somehow, climb a set of stairs, it looks like, right? And which annealing oven are we going into? Over here. Oh, that's why the stairs are over there. So we're going into the second story, annealing ovens. While I have this one moment, I want to introduce you to Sue Reed, who's going to run over. Sue Reed works in the studio, and she's an absolute part of the team. She's also, she is my co-author, and actually, without Sue, the book that I'm about to sign in an hour would never, ever, ever have gotten finished. And if I took my shirt off, you would see the scars from the whip. Sue is also known in the studio as the adult in the room, because she has the capacity to actually think ahead, which is remarkable right there, and plan, and she keeps us all in line. So thank you, Sue. And so, you know, what I thought I'd do is show you the making of something else that was in the kiln. I bundled up those white cane that we pulled before. What they're doing right now is, well, you can sort of watch this. It's sort of self-explanatory. I've wired up hundreds of lengths of that white cane that we pulled before, and it's heated up for a day. The next day, it's at 1,100 degrees. I pick it up on the end of a blowpipe, and you ready? I want to do the jacks, yeah? All right, so who's going to carry it? You're... No. We're going. You're not walking with that thing too far. We're going over to the glory hole. So just watch. Don't watch us. We're not doing anything over here. So I'm gonna propagate a little crack by squeezing and chilling the glass. Ready? Okay, so we're gonna actually start another piece right away. And so part of this slideshow is to show you that I've gathered a bunch of white glass. Tucker, you're going to gather clear. I think we're picking up the one with actually, you know what? What time is it? Half hour. Okay, so pick up the smaller disc. Smaller disc. So I'm pulling those cane so that they're just elongated. So I've taken a bundle, and the next one we're actually going to make a plate, and it'll take 20 minutes, I hope. But to make that plate, we started with white cane, which we stretched, and then once it's stretched out, using Fluffy to heat the cane. We'll break that off and cool it off in the annealing oven over a 24 or 36-hour period. Zach picking it up. And it cools in the annealing oven for a day or two. Or usually this might be cooled overnight. And then the next day I take my chopping tool and I just break that cane up into little pieces. And those little pieces, I've got one right here that's actually been slumped. And I don't think there's any way to see it, but if I put my hand here, maybe you can. And no, but it's there, this little piece. And I put one inside the planet, and one of them fell on the floor. So I also dripped some clear glass, put it into a kiln to cool, and the next day, we take that clear glass out, put it in the center of a little ceramic forming thing. And this is Cassie, another person on our team. Cassie's taking those little pieces that I've cut have hundreds of little white filaments. and we pack them all in, and those now go into a melting kiln, and they are heated up to about 1,450 degrees or so. And a day later, they come out, and that disc is what I'm going to pick up next, the one that we actually made in that movie. And so Tucker, what that allows me to do is make these plates that, from my perspective, are what I'm mostly interested in doing these days, is making plates that I imagine that I'm in a spaceship flying towards somewhere out through the stars. And I love the cosmology and the idea of Star Trek, and the fact is tomorrow morning, Artemis is flying to the moon. And actually, I'll introduce you to my wife later on, but my wife is on ABC what's it called? ABC Network News. It's called Good Morning America. She's on Good Morning America tomorrow narrating this launch. And part of the reason I can do all this work is because I have solar panels at my studio, so we make all the electric power that we use. And we actually make twice the electric power that we use and send the rest to the grid. So we're not net zero, but we are net better. Better than whatever. So Tucker is gathering clear glass, and okay, thank you. And I'll do this. So this is more traditional glass blowing. I've got blocks of apple or fruit wood. Actually, hang on to it for a second more. Well, I'm just going to get a pair of tweezers. And this can get turned off now. Okay. I need a pointy torch eventually. You mean spot? No, that's snap. So I'm going to gather clear glass over this. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is take another gather of clear glass and blow this bubble a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to pick up one of those discs that I just showed how we make it. This is beautiful glass, by the way. There's many formulas for glass as there are formulas for all the bread and cake mixes in the world. Glass essentially consists of sand, but something that is often added that helps the sand melt, like soda ash or borax or lead oxide. All of those things help the sand melt. And then there's something called a stabilizer, which is often, in this case, I suspect that Corning is using lime as its stabilizer. I think this is going to be just about the right size. And in this kiln over here, we've had a disc that's been heating up all day. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. And I'm going to use snap, but I'll light it up. I'm sitting on my little speaker, so if I go out, that's why. Jesse, can you turn this pipe while I adjust this a little bit? So I'm going to heat the end of this. Just a little bit. And actually, if you stood behind me, I could hand you this torch. Or I can put snap away. I got it.
Oh, you're going right for it.
Oh. Nope. I have to take another gather of clear glass over this. Okay. That noise you just heard is the glass breaking off the blowpipe that we did before for the planet that we made before, if you heard that noise. Go to the glory hole. Do we have diamond shears right here? Diamond shears? Actually, if you don't have them, it's no... Either one looks good. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is get a perfect bubble, which is now no longer perfect. But I'm getting a bubble of glass, and I'm going to pick up the plate that I melted in the little video. And then we're going to shape that, and it'll become the center of another, of a plate. And I'll use the torch. Thank you. You guys are so patient watching this. I'm bored just doing this. That's great. There's a little tinted glass here, so if you duck behind here, you can actually see what you're looking at. It's kind of a cool trick. So what I'm trying to do now is shape this disc. And smooth it back against this bubble. Okay. And I'm just using a graphite paddle here. A wooden paddle would also work. When glass is hot, just the most gentle whisper of air will blow a bubble out for you. When it's cold, you can be the 100 horsepower compressor and it doesn't do you any good. So it's just choosing the right moment to blow. I'm going to now roll it on the marver a little bit. And Tucker, I'm going to give it to you if you want to just heat it the rest of the way in. I think I've got it pretty well centered there. So we pulled the white cane, we bundled it up, we stretched the white cane, then we broke it into segments, then we put the cane in a little forming thing, heated it up to 1400 degrees and ended up with a disc. Now the disc is kind of cool because I can make something with the disc and use it. I make a whole variety of discs. You guys are nervous with this, aren't you? I don't blame you. I'm pretty nervous myself. Okay. Now I'm more in the center. But anyway, so I make these discs, especially in the summertime when there's a lot of light and I've got a lot of electric power. And I'm making way more power than I use in the summertime especially. And so then I have this whole selection of discs that I can use depending on what mood I'm in or what's going on in the wintertime when we have the free air conditioning. And so Tucker's going to smooth that in a little bit more. And then we're going to gather cobalt blue glass over it. And you'll sort of lose track of the white. And then we'll blow that out a little bit and then punty it up and then flare it out to make a little bowl or a little plate. At this point, it could be almost anything. We could make this into a vase or a vase. Do you guys know the difference? About $100. And so I try to make vases, but whatever. How are you doing, Tuck? We're ready? Yep. So we have 15 minutes till the live feed goes off and the whole lights go out, and that's the end of it. So blue, we're going to gather blue. And then we're going to make this the rest of the way. Okay, let's go. Yep. It looks beautiful. Good. Okay, so I've got a little bit gather of blue glass. It kind of looks orange, doesn't it? Trust me, it's cobalt blue. It's this classic cobalt blue color. You know, this is a good block. All I need is newspaper. Jesse, do you have the Wall Street Journal? Us left-wing socialist glassblowers want the Wall Street Journal, though. The Leader, that's what we'll use, if that's what we've got. Sure. You want to turn? You hear that squeaking noise? Or can you out there? That's the metal of the tool just objecting to being next to the glass, which is why we have wax here, which we can put on our tool. And the wax is kind of cool because it makes the glass slide on the metal tool. Okay, maybe blow a little. Good enough for now. We'll heat it up again. I'll heat it up. This is not as heavy. And you know what? I'm going to get you to blow a little bit more. Go ahead. And I'm cooling the bottom because I don't want it to blow out too thin. I'm going to heat it up again. And this time, I don't think I need the door opened. It's okay. And when I come out, I'm going to blow into this block of wood on the floor. And I'll go once more to the glory hole, and then we'll actually punty this up. Now, we could have taken another 2 gathers of glass and made this larger, but it'll be very precise because of those white lines on the inside. Okay. And Tucker, can you blow a little bit? Yes, that would be great if you did that. Go ahead, blow, 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 blow. Stop. Actually, in my studio, we often have the stereo going. And so we've learned to trust hand signals with blow, because the word blow, 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 and no, no, no are very similar when you're listening to the Grateful Dead at full blast. And so in the studio, we have these hand signals. Or sometimes I'll shake my head. Okay, that's good. So Tucker, you're going to blow a little bit, and I'm flattening the bottom. Blow. Blow, 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 blow. And I'm flattening the bottom so this little plate or disc will have a place to sit flat. Punty, Zach, you're up. Yeah, I'll just flash for a second or two. That's good. So when you punty something up, you put glass on the end of a steel rod called a pontille, which in French means little bridge. So we're making a little bridge between the steel rod and the glass in order to take it away from the blowpipe. And we want a little bridge because we want this bridge to break later on. Zach is a true master at punty bringing. Seriously. That was beautiful. Okay, so the next step is to propagate a little crack. So I'm cooling it with my jack, and then I'll hit it with a hammer as hard as I can, and it'll fall off if we're lucky. And we put these blowpipes back in this bucket because we're using 916 stainless steel on the end of the pipe, which has a different linear coefficient of expansion than the glass itself. And so as they cool, those two separate violently sometimes. They just, the glass explodes. And that's, I suspect, the reason for this glass wall is because when that glass explodes, it's pretty amazing. It just goes everywhere. But by having it in a bucket, theoretically, it stays put. But every now and then you can hear it exploding in that bucket. So Tucker's getting, or no, Zach's getting the top. Okay. So I'm going to use my duckbill shears. Can you see why they're called duckbills? Quack, quack, quack. And so I'm going to shear the lip to make it even. And now Jesse's going to bring a lip wrap for me. Or no, Zach is, sorry. So a lip wrap is a little bit of opposing color. So this is an icy blue color. And Zach's going to come behind me. I'm going to pick up his punty with a shear and just drip that blue glass on that top edge of this little lip. And ideally you concentrate while you're doing this so you don't make mistakes. And then I'll cut it off. So now I've got a light blue color. And now I have to heat it up so that that blue color is just integrated into the lip. How are we doing for time? Is it 3 o'clock yet?
6 minutes. 6 minutes.
Got plenty of time.
Perfect time. It's like you planned this job.
Okay, so now I'm going to straighten out that lip a little bit. Zach, you're my friend here. Outside first. Outside. There you go. Perfect. And now flat. And now I'm going to use really the most ancient tool here, which is called a steam stick. I'm going to get this a little bit hotter. It's a cone of wet apple wood. And that cone, when I put that cone into the opening of this plate, which could be a vase right now, or a vase, I'm actually going to expand. I'm going to push this in. The water in the steam stick turns to steam and actually blows out the form for me a little bit. And I don't know if there are parchoffi in the back. The next tool I'm going to use are an Italian tool called a parchoffi. They have wooden sticks in the end, and but in my studio they're called lumberjacks. So, because they're a jack tool with just wood blades. Okay. So I'm sort of flaring this out, not flaring the lip, but flaring the bottom out. I want to get it hotter still, though. Okay, that sounds good, or feels good. Sure. So now I'm beginning to flare this out a little bit.
We're just going to spin it out to the yeah.
We'll see. I next have to make it into a plate form, so I have to spin this and use centrifugal force to spin it out. And I'm not sure whether I'll do that this time. I don't think I will. I'll wait for one more time to do that, because I want to get it a little bit more even. I don't know if any of you can see from there the white lines that are inside this. Maybe not yet. Okay, this time we'll do it. Probably should open the big door. Yeah. Go ahead. Can you guys feel that heat at all? No. Yeah? Tucker can feel it. Just a little bit. It'll be almost flat, just a little bit of camber to it. And I don't know, now can you see the white lines? Oh, they're there. So this will be a cobalt blue plate with a spray of white lines. And if you imagine you're on the Starship Enterprise, right in the window, just with stars flying by, that's my idea here. Okay, so now, actually there's a little bit more, one last small challenge, which is to get this off the blowpipe, or off the punty rod. You're worried it's going to fall off, aren't you? Jesse doesn't trust me. But I'm going to bring this over to the kiln for you. No, that's too complicated. I'm just going to take this stick, though, to use it. So you and I, Jess, are going over here. And Chris Rochelle, who used to live in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, is going to... Ready? Whoa! So, thank you. So these slides are what you can do with those plates. This is some of my other work. This was actually in the Purgatory Shelf. It's called Flame Front, and it's what it's like to look at a glory hole. One morning early, a glory hole exploded in my face, and this is what flames look like when they're coming right at you. It turns out that propane moves through the air faster than you can blink and get out of the way. But this was such a failure that I had it on the Purgatory Shelf. This is an actual Hubble image of the Carina Nebula and one of my plates, New Mexico pattern, vases and bowls. And this is my crew. This is my crew. Zach, who's right here. Zach was not here that day. I don't know how he got out of it, but this is my crew. And without this crew, without these folks, I could not do what I do. I couldn't do it. Nothing would happen. And I also want to introduce my wife, Katie Coleman, who is now at, actually she was an astronaut for 25 years. She retired as NASA's most senior astronaut. And this is her suited up in her Russian Sokol spacesuit. Her third launch was aboard a Soviet Soyuz spacecraft. She launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan and spent 6 months living in space. And I thought I'd show you this. Astronauts are allowed to bring small things with them, provided they will fit in a sandwich bag. And I convinced Katie to bring along with her some planets. And it's cool to imagine a place where there's no gravity. It's magical. You know, we don't know. They might have come back. They might not have. But I think it's possibly, maybe, potentially, maybe, probably, possibly, possible that some of them are still in orbit around the Earth. So that's it. Thank you so much. And thank my crew. Thank Jesse, Tucker, Zach, Chris, Rochelle, Dan for photographing, and Sue Reed over here. Sue Reed.